thank you so much for everybody who's sharing too. I'm listening to everything and I'm writing down notes, and I think anything that I wanted to say has probably pretty much been pitched out the window right now. But my situation was different than a lot of people. Were some similarities. I think that what I've seen so far from most people that have talked about the alienation is almost always there's a divorce involved, and that's basically what I've known as well. But there have been times that the children have just cut you off as well. My situation that. My wife did file for divorce. It was a divorce that I thought was the stupidest divorce in the state of Texas in its history. I went to the church. My former father-in-law had married us. We went to Bible college together. My wife and I had been in ministry, been in missions and stuff like that. Never expected that my former in-laws would be part of the problem and not part of the solution. When you get married, you want to have a strong marriage. My parents got divorced growing up, and it was something that I never wanted my children to ever have to go through themselves, just because of the devastation. And one of the things I remember when my parents got divorced, my father told me that they were getting divorced. He did not want the divorce, but he said, "I know you're probably going to live with your mom." As a child, I thought, that's so unfair that nobody's going to be living with dad, so I'm going to be living with dad. And so that was my decision, but we had a lot of turmoil in our own lives. And I remember when my mom tried to bring in, her boyfriend, now husband at the time, and the resentment that I felt to think that this imposter was now supposed to be my new parent, my new father, and how I rebelled against that. Well, anyway, fast forward to some time later on, my ex-wife gets a divorce, and she's married very shortly thereafter. She is in a relationship with a divorced pastor of all things. And, it was very difficult because during this time after the divorce, actually, my daughters and I got closer. I think that they saw some things that they were really shocked over, and we ended up having a very good relationship. But then somewhere during the course of time, my youngest daughter got pregnant. She got pregnant twice. I had been babysitting the kids, and somehow there was a situation that involves Children's Protective Services, and I got blamed for it. My daughter sued me. My ex-wife went to court. She committed perjury. Her husband was there. I mean, it was all sorts of things that happened. The one thing that I think everybody said is that, you don't know how to explain this stuff. How do you rationally explain the irrational? You can't. It's insanity at times. And the other thing is that I've gone to the church on many occasions, and I think that some of you have also alluded to the fact that in many instances the church has been absolutely atrocious in helping. They almost alienate you. They take a side often. The ministry of Christ is supposed to be to bring healing, and and so many times the church doesn't do that. So as Elaine said, I'm involved in a number of things right now, and I'll get to the very important part in just a moment, Elaine. But I mean, I've thought that no-fault divorce has created a lot of problems, so we've taken a case to the Supreme Court, planning to do so again. We've been talking, Michael, what you were just talking about, the necessity of both parents. Children need both parents. Children have a right to both parents. And one parent should not be abusing the children by alienating a parent from the children. Anyway, my daughter and I had been watching the kids. I was basically like the source of stability to my grandchildren. And then all of a sudden I got accused of reporting her to CPS, which I would never do. Beg CPS to tell her I had nothing to do with it. They didn't do it. So that became another battle that I was involved with. And, after 8 years of fighting these things, we're seeing, I think, some changes that are taking place in awareness and possibly also in legislation. I've been one that's been very vocal. I didn't know what to do, because the thing is that you feel so ashamed about the whole thing. You're almost afraid to talk about it because people are going to scorn you. And like somebody said earlier, well, they're going to say, well, what's your problem? Maybe you were a bad this. Maybe you were a bad that. Nobody's perfect. But I think that just because you're not perfect does not mean you were not good as a mother or as a father. So anyway, just recently, last year, my son called me, and he actually reached out to me because I was so upset about some of this stuff. And he said, "Dad, maybe I've approached this incorrectly, but I really want you in my life." And so I got to meet with him, and then as I'm up with him, I found out where my one daughter lived, and I couldn't talk with her for a long time. I had a birthday card I sent to her for her birthday. I just said, I don't know what to say. I love you. I've had this card for several years. I wrote to her, and then 2 days later, she says, "Do you want to see the grandkids?" And I was like, "Of course." But I thought the system that makes people even question that you do not, that wants to make you a bad parent, a bad grandparent, or something like that. I have one daughter left that still is not there, that I'm still hoping and praying for. But I'll be honest with you as well. One of the most difficult parts for me was the humility, that I could not demand account. Why did you do this? You just had to pick it up. And it was so hard because, I don't know if you guys have this issue or not, but I was thinking they need to apologize to me. And I mean, we talked at times like maybe we should do this or cut them out of the wills or whatever. And, it was right at the end of the rope that it seemed like God broke through. So all I can say is you've got to love. I mean, God is an alienated father, and he's loved us until the end, until we've turned to him. And all I can say is that I'm very grateful right now. I get to see 3 of my grandchildren, and there's 4 that are still out there, but, God willing, that will happen as well. And thank you, Elaine, again for everything that you've done, because had it not been for you, you don't know how you're going to get through some of this stuff. You didn't even know that it had a name to it. So I want to thank you again publicly.